Let's begin with the simple statement, not with shock. I don't want to shock you. I just want to be clear. The use of chemical weapons by the Russian Federation, first in Syria and now with grim repetition in Ukraine, is not an aberration. It's a pattern, it's a policy, and it's predictable. And for those familiar with Vladimir Putin's strategic mindset, it was always on the cards. I know how Trump loves to talk about cards. Putin's approach to power is defined not by diplomacy, but by domination, not by law, but by force. And this is not conjecture from foreign analysts. It comes directly from those who once sat beside him at the Kremlin table. Take Mikhail Krasyanov, Russia's prime minister from 2000 to 2004. He now lives in exile in Latvia, branded a foreign agent by the state he once served. His testimony is chilling in its lucidity. Putin doesn't want peace, he wants Ukraine, all of it. And he sees the war as a long game, a war of attrition that, in his view, Russia is equipped to win financially, militarily, morally, psychologically. This is about territorial negotiations. It's about reasserting imperial influence. Novorussia. First over Ukraine, then Moldova, and ultimately testing NATO's resolve in the Baltics. Putin has always telegraphed this intention. From Chechnya to Georgia, from Crimea to Syria, the message is consistent: pause, reload, invade. And now, in Ukraine, we face the most grotesque chapter in that doctrine. Russia has turned to chemical weapons, not only in defiance of international law, but as an active element in battlefield doctrine. From Mariupol in 2022, where Ukrainian fighters reported a yellowish gas suspected to be chloropicrin, to the trenches of Pokrovsk in 2025, where CS gas, CN gas, and bespoke Russian agents like Cheremuka have been deployed. This isn't incidental, it's systemic. And Putin has used chemical weapons before, in Salisbury. Ukraine's Ministry of Defense has logged over 1,000 chemical attacks. The weapons include World War I-era agents and more modern concoctions, tear gas agents modified for maximum harm, suffocants deployed via artillery and drone, and experimental irritants designed to maim, not just disperse. These were not riot control agents gone astray. These are deliberate violations of the Chemical Weapons Convention, to which Russia is a signatory. Article 1, paragraph 5 of that convention expressly bans the use of riot control agents in warfare. Russia signed it in 1997. It now mocks it openly, and history confirms that this isn't novel. In Syria, Russia enabled and refined Assad's use of chlorine and nerve agents against civilians. In Salisbury, the Novichok poisoning of Sergei and Yulia Skripal brought Russia's chemical ambitions to British soil. And in defense, Lavrov says, a Russian agent who helped develop Novichok fled to America and published the chemical components of Novichok. Anybody could make it. What this Novichok attack in Salisbury tells us is that Russia is sending a message: not only can we reach you, we will. And they reached Alexei Navalny as well. In the case of Navalny, Novichok used once again, signalling to the world, no one is beyond us. Chemical warfare isn't simply brutality, it's theatre. It's intended to terrorize, to humiliate, to demonstrate impunity. For every Ukrainian soldier gasping in a trench, for every civilian family driven underground by rocket and gas, Putin sends a message: no one will stop me. And tragically, so far, he's not entirely wrong. The West, divided and often hesitant, whispers about ceasefires and dialogue as if a rational actor sits in the Kremlin. But there is no peace to be had with a man whose strategy is built on genocide. Every call for a ceasefire merely buys him time. As Krasyanov put it, the dream is the lifting of sanctions, and when that fails, the dream becomes the annexation of more land. Indeed, let's speak plainly, this is genocide. The abduction of over 100,000 Ukrainian children, the deportations, the torture chambers uncovered in Kherson, the mass graves of Bucha. These are not tragic footnotes. They are the substance of a calculated extermination campaign. And now we arrive at the moment of decision. Is this Ukraine's war? Or is it the free world's war? If Putin succeeds in Ukraine, the message is clear. Chemical warfare works. Genocide works. And NATO will not stop unless its own cities are burning. The stakes couldn't be higher. And yes, support for Ukraine must be enduring and material, not rhetorical, not delayed. Every hesitation in Washington, every hesitation in Europe, even every faltering arms shipment, every pause for dialogue, every pause of intelligence sharing costs lives and emboldens the Kremlin. If NATO cannot stop this, it isn't hyperbole, it's history repeating itself. The endgame for Putin is not a neutral Ukraine, it's a subjugated Ukraine, a vassal state, a reminder to Eastern Europe that the Soviet shadow hasn't lifted, it's merely rebranded. We must call it what it is. Not a conflict, but a war crime in process. Not a regional skirmish, but an existential test of international law, Western credibility, moral will. Chemical weapons are not just instruments of pain, they are proof that for Putin there are no lines. And unless we draw one now, clearly, permanently, and with consequence, he will cross the next one.